something untested.
9 a.m. on March 16th. First item of business is, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Jim Gardner, Representative Jim Gardner. Do I hear a second? Representative Mark Schreiber. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We're going to open the hearing on Senate Bill 24, prohibiting municipalities from imposing restrictions on customer use of energy based upon source of energy. Nick, could you give us a revisers of that?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, and I don't know, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So okay. I'm getting a lot of feedback, but if you guys can hear me okay, I'll go ahead and get started. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, Senate Bill 24 would establish a new law that would prohibit municipalities from imposing any ordinance, resolution, code, rule, provision, standard, permit, plan, or any other binding action that would prohibit, discriminate against, restrict, limit, impair, or has the effect of any of those thereof an in-use customer's use of retail natural gas service. So this bill would not prohibit a municipality from limiting its own use of retail natural gas service as an end-use customer in its own right. The bill would be known and cited as the Kansas Energy Choice Act and would take effect upon publication in the Kansas Register. And Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Reviser? Seeing none, thank you. We'll open the proponent section of this bill. First up is Mark Patrick Vogelsberg, the Manager of Government Affairs for Kansas Gas. Mark, welcome to the committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Patrick Vogelsberg, and I'm here on behalf of Kansas Gas Service. As a reminder, Kansas Gas Service is the state's largest natural gas distribution company with more than 635,000 customers across 341 communities. We are in strong support of Senate Bill 24, which is the Kansas Energy Choice Act, which would continue to allow Kansans the ability to make energy choices and specifically continue to utilize natural gas in their homes and businesses. The origins for this bill really got started in mid-2019 when the city of Berkeley in California was one of the first cities in the country to go down the path of banning or restricting natural gas in new construction. Since then, we've seen these similar proposals spread to other cities across the country, primarily located in the West and East Coast. However, we've seen similar efforts a little bit closer to home in Edmond, Oklahoma and Lawrence, Kansas. We feel that this pathway is fairly short-sighted from a energy security standpoint and will really only hinder a community's ability to lower emissions while also providing affordable and reliable energy. To prevent these policies from happening, we saw a number of states in 2020 jump at the opportunity to pass energy choice legislation. These include Arizona, Louisiana, Tennessee, and just to the south of us, Oklahoma passed that legislation during 2020, and that was something that our company had worked on. And also, our company is joining with others to pursue this legislation in Texas. In 2021, we're aware of a number of other states that are pursuing this. A couple things that I wanted to hit upon is the direct use of natural gas is the most efficient use of this natural resource, that is the direct use into homes and businesses. Our industry is, like other industries, is participating in the energy transformation, and we're looking at different innovations within whether it be renewable natural gas or the possibilities regarding hydrogen. And so we're excited about these opportunities to participate in innovation. Furthermore, as we all know, the natural gas distribution system recently demonstrated its ability in resiliency and reliability in the very extreme weather conditions that we had at the end of February. And throughout that period, we were very pleased to report, and this was due to the tireless work of our employees from across all of our functional fields to maintain gas service to our customers and not experience any widespread outages. And that was primarily due not only to the work of our employees, but the conservation of our customers, but really the investments that we had made over the past years in our infrastructure across our system. And within my testimony, I point to some of the investments that we have made. Those investments, I think, indicate or demonstrate the state's involvement in energy policy. And without the state having being forward-looking, some of those investments would be at risk. And that's those investments on a statewide basis are what we need. Energy policy made at the local level will come with some consequences. Kansas, the weather event that we went through shows that that Kansas needs a diverse energy mix, and we need to continue on with our policy of an all of the above approach to energy. So Senate Bill 24 really continues on in that spirit, recognizing the benefits of natural gas, but also the need to make sure that we don't have communities limiting natural gas and creating some sort of a patchwork of energy policy across the state. As I close in my testimony, this bill really does four things. It continues to allow Kansas to have choice in energy. It will help keep utility bills low. It provides regulatory certainty for not only statewide utilities, but also businesses and households. And it really provides guidance from the state to local communities as they are developing their own sustainability plans. Mr. Chairman, just briefly, I wanted to hit on the bill itself because there were some amendments on the Senate side that we supported as the Senate was considering this. Primarily, the number one thing was originally this legislation was drafted fairly broadly to include both natural gas and electric public utilities. There was a little bit of confusion that brought some complexity to this legislation as far as what sort of entities would be included and would not. So we offered an amendment that narrowed this down to just the retail provision of natural gas. The other thing, which was a concern that was brought up by some of the opponents, was whether a city would be treated as an end-use customer itself. And so if they wanted to go all electric in one of their buildings, would they be able to do so, much like a household or private business would be able to? And so we provided clarifying language to accomplish that. Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd have you be standing for questions at the appropriate time or turn over to some of the other proponents to speak on this legislation.
Anybody have any questions for the group? We might. Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, during that cold spell, did you have any problem at all getting gas to everybody as much as they wanted and so forth?
So throughout that process, we did experience from our suppliers an operational flow order that put some constraints. And then through the storm, it was extremely important that we never lost service to what we call critical needs or human need services. So residential was, residential, hospitals, etc. So through that, we did order curtailments of large industrial customers to go down to plant protection mode. And that was done to make sure that we didn't lose pressures or that we had adequate supply for the residential and higher priority human need services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Patrick. Next up is. Next up is Jerry Watkins, General Manager, Black Hills Energy. Jerry, welcome to the meeting. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Chairman Soward and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to provide comments today in favor of Senate Bill 24. My name is Jerry Watkins. I'm the General Manager for Kansas for Black Hills Energy. We proudly serve over 115,000 customers throughout the state in 65 communities. We serve over 1.3 million customers collectively across 8 states. So I'll just start off with Black Hills agrees with the 4 items that Patrick just mentioned in favor of Senate Bill 24 and what it seeks to accomplish. We know that preserving energy choice is important for all of Kansans. There's no doubt that that natural gas is a great value for consumers. The average residential customer can heat their home, they can have hot water, they can cook their meals, they can enjoy a fireplace, a fire pit for around $50 a month. That's quite the value. So natural gas is also a great value for our commercial and industrial sectors. When you think about low natural gas prices and the energy used, they're an economic driver. So it helps to boost consumer purchasing power and confidence while improving cost competitiveness for American-made products. The elimination of natural gas as an energy source would have a dramatic economic impact on residences and businesses across our great state. Nationally, the average household would see their energy cost increase by nearly 50% if natural gas was eliminated, and it does not include the costs that would be involved or associated with retrofitting homes, upgrading electric panels, or appliance replacement costs. Those costs are not included. Likewise, businesses would also face similar energy and upgrade costs. Simply put, there are manufacturing processes that are specific to natural gas as a source of energy. And I'd like to take just a quick second. I realize there's many questions along the line regarding the Arctic weather event and the spike in the commodity prices. I won't go into a huge amount of detail, but it probably is relevant. We talk just a second on that. So likewise, our people worked around the clock to ensure the gas continued to flow to all Kansans and they stayed warm. So that happened. I got to give a shout out to them. Also, the system integrity and reliability that we have put into our systems over really for the past decade, really came to bear throughout this weather event. Those investments were made possible by the gas system reliability surcharge, or the GSRS, that the legislature passed in 2006, was enhanced in 2018. So thanks to mechanisms like that, our systems were able to perform, and we were able to keep the gas flowing to all customers without having any kind of outages on our systems. The price surge is related to the commodity or the natural gas itself, which accounts for about 60% of a customer's bill. That cost is a straight pass-through for us, so we're not allowed to mark that up. We're not allowed to earn any money on that component. And then finally, just the Kansas Corporation Commission oversees our annual gas supply plan each year. And of course, it opened up a separate docket to look into that pricing surge and the related weather event. So hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on what's going on. I'm sure there's questions, and we're at the forefront of people's minds today. So moving on with energy choice, the effort to ban natural gas, as Patrick mentioned, isn't just a coastal phenomenon. It's happening right here at home, just across the way in Lawrence, Kansas, which we provide service in that location. But in March of 2020, the city of Lawrence approved Ordinance 9744 that set goals for all energy sectors to be 100% renewable community-wide by 2035. The ordinance seeks to eliminate natural gas as an energy choice, and that would have the unintended effect of raising bills of nearly 32,000 customers by over 50% or more. And again, that does not include any of the upgrading or upfitting charges associated with that. About 85% of Lawrence households would experience this spike, and that does not include the cost, again, to replace any of the appliances, the outside units, water heaters, cook stoves, or wiring upgrades. I just think of the impact that that could have on that local community. Overall, I'll say that Black Hills does support and encourage all sensible paths to utilizing clean energy and reducing greenhouse gas emissions while providing affordable and reliable energy to our customers both today and tomorrow. As a company, we share the goal of reducing emissions and believe a collaborative partnership with community stakeholders can best set a path forward to achieve the goal of reduced emissions. We believe natural gas can and should play an important role in this path forward. Natural gas can continue to shrink our country's carbon footprint. Matter of fact, it has already done that by over 50%, according to the National Energy Technology Laboratory. And, bottom line, we know that climate change is a sensitive issue. There's passion on both sides of the fence. It's a challenging problem that we need to face. But with technology evolving every day, now is not the time to limit those choices. And that's why we're here today. Partnerships, options, diversity, all of those things work together to create sensible solutions to tough issues like this. But discord, limitations, omissions, and closed minds lead to bad choices and costly solutions. But I'd like to leave you just with three thoughts today. Number one, that consumers want choice. We know that. They don't want to be told what they can and can't do, the energy that they can and can't use. They want to be able to make that choice for themselves. Eliminating natural gas as an energy option is costly, and it creates uncertainty for residential, commercial, and the industrial sectors. And then that Black Hills is committed to partnering with communities to seek to implement sensible greenhouse gas reductions that enhance the quality of life for all Kansans. So with that, I'll stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next up, Bart Armstrong, President for Kansas Colorado Division of Atmos Energy Corporation. Bart, welcome to the committee.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Bart Armstrong with Atmos Energy, and thank you, Chairman, and thank you, committee members. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and I realize that I'm the last of the three gas companies, so I'm going to try to not be redundant and repeat information that you've already heard. As I said, I'm Bart Armstrong. I'm over our Atmos Energy's Colorado, Kansas division, and I know you've seen and read my written testimony, but I just want to tell a little bit more about my role with Atmos. It maybe gives me a little bit of a unique perspective on this regarding the customers and the communities that we serve. So I've lived in Kansas for 13 years. I've been with the gas company for about 30 years. Live in Olathe, Kansas, Johnson County. And my time here, I've served as over a VP of operations and VP of marketing. So I've worked directly with our customers in some capacity during my entire career, whether it was residential, commercial, industrial, even out in the western part of the state with the irrigation customers. At Atmos, we provide affordable, reliable, and safe service to a little over 135,000 customers here in Kansas. We've been here and done that for over 120 years. Atmos is dedicated to Kansas, and we've been investing in our safety of our system, kind of as Jerry alluded to, on an accelerated basis through programs approved through the Kansas Corporation Commission. We've also investing in growth in Kansas. We install new gas main almost every day across the state of Kansas somewhere for industrial, commercial, and residential customers. We know our customers in our communities. We live in these towns, our neighbors and our friends we go to church and play ball with and go to school. We know they want access to our service. They know our service will be there for them when they need it. And they also know our affordability and the level of service that we provide. So Atmos Energy believes that all Kansans should be able to choose energy source that's right for their homes and their businesses. We just ask for your support for the Senate Bill 24 to make sure that no Kansas community is prohibited from having access to natural gas service that meets their energy needs. And similar to what the other two have said also, we believe it will take the best we all have to offer to meet goals at the local, state, and federal level to get to a net zero emissions. And we believe Atmos Energy will be a part of that energy solution for Kansans. We'll continue to do our part to preserve energy choice for generations to come. So that's what I've got prepared today, and I will take questions if you want to. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
Next up, Scott Snyder on behalf of Kansas Restaurant and Hospitality Association. Scott, welcome to the committee. Please state your name and who you're with.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Scott Schneider. I'm with the Kansas Restaurant and Hospitality Association. I intentionally didn't wear a dark suit today, just so you know that I'm not here on behalf of a utility company. I've been working on that. Okay. Restaurants are concerned about this because we're the one litigating this one in California. The Restaurant Association in California has sued the city of Berkeley. When Patrick called earlier this session, I'm like, this thing's still going on? And he goes, yeah, you ought to check it. So I checked it, looked it up. That case has been going on for over a year and a half. They're still arguing standing and whether or not the associations can even do that. But it leads me to support this bill even more because the protracted litigation that's unnecessary is something that if we pass this bill, we know that we can avoid. We've passed some other preemptions. Some we've worked with our local governments. We understand that it's challenging for their agenda to be restricted by the state, but it's the path that the legislature has to restrict it. It's what the Constitution prescribes. They have home rule, we have statutes, and if we apply them uniformly, the home rule isn't allowed to win. So I leave you with just one last observation. We understand as a huge industry in the state of Kansas, it's the balloon analogy. If the cost of gas is in one balloon, the volume is the cost, and you squeeze one end of it, that balloon's still going to have the same amount of volume, but you're going to push more of the cost just to somebody else. The broader you could have the cost spread, the lower that our costs are going to be. And as an industry, we understand that, and we would support this bill. Thank you very much.
Any questions? I have one since you're not a gas company. Do you know who was the leader in introducing this bill? Because I can't get that information.
Well, at one point, because this is now the second or third year, this was an issue that was on our agenda originally to introduce. So I was going to do it. I know that I worked with Patrick in the past on the issue, but it has been a lead agenda for our association.
Okay. So, thank you. Next up, Daniel Murray, Kansas State Director for National Federation of Independent Businesses. Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Dan Murray. I'm the Kansas State Director for NFIB. NFIB is the state's largest small business organization, representing about 4,000 small business owners from across the state. We support this bill wholeheartedly, and we've worked on this legislation in other states, Oklahoma most recently and most closely to home. In our most recent small business problems and priorities, which was this past year, of 75 problems rated, the 16th was electricity costs, the 19th was natural gas costs. Energy costs are an issue for small business owners. Furthermore, heading into the session, knowing that this issue was coming before us, we balloted our members. 88% said this was a big problem, or 88% said they would support this legislation. Of the remaining, only 4% said they didn't support it. The other 8% were undecided. So a whopping 88% of small business owners support this legislation. Small business owners know, as Mr. Schneider pointed out, that if you squeeze the balloon on one end, the other side's going to go up in terms of costs. They know that limiting options increase the cost of doing business. And unfortunately, that leads to increased cost of services and goods that they'll pass on to their consumers. So would urge the support by this committee and would stand for questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I got one quick one again.
Sure.
Since you represent independent businesses and stuff, and if they put this ban on and all this cooking and hospitality and everything had to go to resistance heat, how would restaurants and stuff be able to cope with providing service to the customers with resistant heating? That would be, I would think, be very heavy on the grid then.
Certainly, and I would defer to someone that would have more expertise on the impact on the grid for sure. It would have an impact. It would have to have an impact. And I would defer to Mr. Schneider on, certainly some of our members are his members. We have a lot of retail and restaurant and hospitality members. We know they want to cook with gas. It's just a more reliable, consistent heating source for preparing food. And so we've heard that concern as well, not just the cost that it would have on limiting their energy choices.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Jason Watkins, Wichita Regional Chamber of Commerce. Jason?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Watkins indicated he had another engagement, so he'd just like to be written only for this.
What's that?
He'd like to be written only.
Okay, all right, that'll be fine. Jonathan Litt, on behalf of Americans for Prosperity. Jonathan, welcome to the committee. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Luke.
Yes, sir.
In the interest of time, I will be quick. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is John Luth. I'm here today representing thousands of grassroots activists across the state who are engaged with Americans for Prosperity to speak in support of this bill. AFP activists stand in support of SB 24 because it would ensure consumers can choose their fuel source for their homes, doing so by limiting the ability of local governments to impose restrictions on consumers and choosing their heating and energy for their homes through California-style energy prohibitions. More than 70% of Kansans rely on natural gas or propane for home heating. And local bans such as these would do nothing more than serve as a regressive tax that hurts low and middle income, hardworking Kansans who are simply trying to live their lives. Top-down policies that eliminate consumer choice, especially during a time when those options are at record low prices, will only make energy poverty even worse in our state, coming off the heels of a situation that has already been worsened due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Kansans who are already living paycheck to paycheck certainly cannot handle these kinds of harmful, cost-increasing measures, and should this legislation not pass, we may just grow the number of Kansans who are living paycheck to paycheck. SB 24 addresses this troubling trend of energy prohibition by adopting a fuel-neutral policy, disallowing discriminatory bans or restrictions of a consumer's use of public utility based on the source of energy to be delivered. We have seen time and again that Green New Deal style local energy bans simply do not work and are more about forcing politically preferred energy sources on citizens than addressing needs or even meeting environmental goals. In fact, since 2007, Kansas has reduced per capita carbon dioxide emissions by more than 30%, far outpacing states that have embraced top-down energy mandates, including reductions 4 times greater than that of California, Connecticut, New York, and Vermont. For these reasons, I ask that you support consumer choice and vote yes on SB 24. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you, sir. That concludes the proponents section of our hearing today. I will open the written, and I'll read those off for Ed Cross, who's President of Independent Oil and Gas Association. I see Ed here, so just step down. Okay. And that goes on behalf of the Kansas Chamber. Here. Mark Toome with the Vice President of Government Affairs, Kansas Association of Realtors. Sean Miller with Kansas Building Industry Association. Curtis Snyden, President of Kansas Greater Chamber of Commerce. Greater Topeka Chamber of Commerce. Chris McCowan, Tioga, that's like Tioga. Eastern Kansas Oil and Gas Producer President. Ernest Kelsey with AARP. And Donna Farah, Dolly Farah with Belle Plaine, Kansas. It's all written testimony for proponents for this. Don't see any questions.
I do have a question, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I don't know if Mr. Cross is present, but I saw in the testimony of the Eastern Kansas gas producers the total value of oil and gas production in Kansas but I was wondering if someone either from Cuyahoga or the Eastern Kansas oil and gas producers could tell us what the contribution of natural gas production is to the Kansas gross domestic product or economy, separate and apart from oil production.
I didn't mute. Try it. Can you hear me now, Representative Carmichael?
I hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay. We're trying to set up another informational briefing from all the companies that were involved in the crisis situation of the power outage. Would that be suffice if we could invite one of them to come and talk about it then?
Oh, it's not important. This doesn't have anything to do with the crisis that happened a few days ago. I was just trying to find out what natural gas production, what its contribution to the Kansas economy is. But that's okay. Thanks.
Is Ed still out here? Is Ed in the hallway?
I know it's addressed in the Eastern Kansas Oil and Gas Association's testimony, but it's combined both petroleum and natural gas. And I was wondering if Mr. Cross or somebody else could tell us what how much money natural gas production contributes to our economy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is Chris McGowan here? They must have stepped out to go to another meeting, so we'll try to get them and have that same conversation. Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your help.
All right. Okay, we're going to close the proponent written section. We'll open the opponent section. We have some time left. First on is John Chivalry, Director of Office of Justice, Sisters of Charity of Leavenworth. It's virtual. Are you on here? Okay. Next up is Ted Cramner with Big Springs, Kansas, virtual. Ted, are you on here? Maybe they'll not be able to hear us. Maybe in best interest of this, it's up to the committee. What would you think about closing this portion of it until we can have this system fixed?
Well, I'm here, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Berkowitz?
I'm also here, Representative.
Chair, I would just suggest that in as much as there are opponent testimonies that are available, that the fact that they've made themselves available this time to get as many of them as is possible. Is that okay?
That's why I said, I think most of these are all virtual, the opponent side. Is there anybody here testifying? Zach? Okay. I'll let my buddy Zach come up here. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman, buddy. Appreciate it.
Please state your name and who you're with.
Yes, I'm Zach Pastora, proud lobbyist for the Kansas chapter of Sierra Club. Honored to be before you today to talk about Senate Bill 24. We're a volunteer-based, nonpartisan organization dedicated to protecting the great outdoors in Kansas. We have about 5,000 members across the state, and we support the opportunity for Kansas municipalities to determine their future locally and transition away from the negative costs of fossil fuels. And you heard the proponents talk a lot about reliability and affordability in their testimony. And when we had the hearing on the Senate side at the end of January, it was hard to argue with some of that. But recent events with the deep freeze in mid-February, how that's going to be. Yeah. Okay. The deep freeze in mid-February, I think the game has changed quite a bit. We talk about thank you. Is that better?
Okay. Cross came back in.
So anyway, we all know what happened. I mean, Kansas wasn't immune to the hardship and difficulty, the price spikes, the busting water pipes from the freeze, and the blackouts, et cetera. But Texas certainly got it more and had a tougher time. This is Texas. This is the #1 state for natural gas production. Okay. If they're having a hard time in Texas and had such a suffering, and that just shows the vulnerability of natural gas, particularly for our energy future. It seems to sound like we're gaining natural gas tomorrow. We heard one city in Kansas, the city of Lawrence, considering gaining natural gas in the future, 2035. Okay, 14 years from now. Think about where we were 14 years ago. If all of a sudden we were nervous about California investing in wind technology and maybe technology and maybe you didn't think that was around to be billions of dollars investment. And that's coming around to be billions of dollars investment take jobs, thousands of jobs on the grid, lowering electric and wholesale market. So think about what you're doing right now. Practically, if you pass Senate Bill 24. So think about what you're doing right now. Practically, if you pass Senate Bill 24, you might get some insurance that maybe down the road, 14 years from now or even later, that's this all electric. But, as far as I can tell, maybe it might get you a campaign contribution to what you're doing. But 60 years ago, as I can tell, maybe it might get you a campaign contribution. 60 years ago, the legislature, this body was important to provide for the most flexibility, the most to happen at the local level. Governance to happen. You may hear from other conferees. You may see from other conferees or see some written testimony. This is in the Constitution now. This is in the Constitution now. Outer state has more powers. Kansas does. And we could have a statewide rule to preempt cities from having a patchwork. There's no patchwork of regulation. Like I said, the regulations of the city. Kansas City, I should say. Kansas, the city 14 years from now is considering going all electric for a good reason. Lawrence, 14 years from now, is going all electric. They may have aspirations to reduce their carbon footprint. It may be cheaper instead of investing in the gas service. Can shut down, can be costly as we figured out. Then the state had to bail out city utilities so they can pay back some of those wholesale gas suppliers for the spike in energy. I just think we'll talk about what would be short-sighted if we don't pass Senate Bill 24. It would be short-sighted if we don't pass Senate Bill 24. Because we don't know where things will be 14 years from now. 14 years from now. Oncoming with hydrogen, as we heard proponents talk about, with natural gas service, is that violating the Energy Choice Act? So you have my testimony. You can see that it's cost effective already now for new construction, all electric homes. There's a good report in my testimony from the Rocky Mountain Institute that provides that analysis. But here today, think about what just happened with the deep freeze. Think about the reliability and affordability of natural gas during that time. And think about whether we really need this policy. There's no banning of natural gas right now. And probably for most cities in Kansas, if not all, not going to ban natural gas for the foreseeable future. So this is a solution in search of a problem, and I urge you to not pass Senate Bill 24. That said, very important, there is some amendment language to provide for at the very least, this bill shouldn't harm energy conservation, building ordinances to improve safety, the most of the service that we provide. So it certainly includes amendment if you wish. But I urge you, protect the constitutional power of home rule in Kansas. Allow cities to determine what's right for them, not from other legislators representing other districts in Topeka, and oppose Senate Bill 24. Thank you very much. Good question. I agree. And remember, we're talking about here and now in 2021. We don't know where gas prices will be by the time 2035 comes around. The city of Lawrence is considering this. But hey, those locally elected leaders will understand the community's concern. And if the community is saying, whoa, wait a second, the business industry of Lawrence, the restaurants are saying, no, we're not prepared by 2035 natural gas. That's a long time from now. I imagine they could quickly change their mind. But I think what you're starting to see is a more parity, if not a cost affordability argument for the future. And besides, so there's the kind of nuts and bolts of economics of looking forward to the cost of gas and the prices, et cetera. But when we have to take on the monumental challenge of dealing with a change with extreme weather and a changing climate, we're going to have to meet that challenges in different ways. And it's not always going to be easy. In some ways, the price may be worth it for that investment. So I appreciate your sentiment, being a good steward of the environment. And I would just say, we can take this up 5 years from now when it becomes a problem. We don't have today.
Another thing, the people, if they do want all elected, they can do all elected. People do, so I mean, they do have that choice, and so I mean, that's their awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Gardner. So this is talking into that thing.
Well, as a word, I guess, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Zach, good to see you. You probably know more about approved ordinance 9744 than anyone. Since we don't have anyone from Lawrence in front of us, they have submitted written testimony. My question is this ordinance, I'm looking at some of the testimony that it says that all energy sectors be 100% renewable community. So that tells me they want to be 100% renewable at 2035, which means next year they could households. You say 25. I think so. The way I read it, it starts now. Or if you sort of point that out. And, I don't know where Lawrence, they talk about this, they're responding to their values and Lawrence, do you have any idea? Did they have a committee that came up with all
Yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn. It'd be nice if you got the answer straight from them, Representative, but director, they have a sustainability advisor made up by volunteers and members of the public. Years, residents have come before city council asking them
that's from an outside view. I just live outside of Lawrence and Linwood. I think that's what was happening there. I take your point about things happening overnight, but practically that's not the case. The entire with the city leadership, they're exploring things at this point. They're trying to put goals, respond to their constituent concerns out there. But practically, will they on 2035 turn all the gas off in the city? Probably not. That's what they tell me. New construction going forward. Do they want to invest millions of dollars in pipeline infrastructure and all that, support the utility that's not going to conform with their values? That's something that, comes to mind.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I see, I'm all for home rule and normally am for home rule. But I don't want the city telling me whether or not I can use natural gas, electricity. That's what it boils down for me. That ought to be my decision that I make. So
if I may, I said the same thing. Well, my grandma said the same thing. I didn't about seatbelts. I said, well, hey, I don't need the government telling me to wear a seatbelt. But at some point, we got to come up with rules to protect the public good. That we got to meet our challenges, and so I understand the kind of individual choice concern, but remind yourself that should we have the state telling cities what they cannot do, and this is a local government issue. Let's keep it at the local government. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other questions? I have one. You referred to the natural gas during this last pandemic, or not pandemic.
Deep freeze.
Deep freeze.
Yeah, that's what I call it. Polar vortex, winter storm, whatever.
Any other source of energy that failed during that time period?
Yeah.
Base load generators?
My research showed that pretty much all energy types suffered some problems. And so, everything from the coal piles freezing up to natural gas was probably most extensively affected. That's everything from the well production to the pipelines. And then when you have the electricity go off, then the pipelines couldn't move the gas, to nuclear plants shut down in Texas, to wind turbines freezing up because they weren't weatherized like they are here in Kansas, to solar panels because you got snow and ice on top of the solar panels. You got to get off and clean those off. So I just think that just goes to show that extreme temperatures, right? That we gotta swallow our pride a little bit and get to the reality that climate is changing. We're significantly at the detriment of that volatile climate, and so those extreme temperatures we got to prepare for going forward. So to answer your question, the more atmospheric pollution we release out there through greenhouse gases from fossil fuels, the more trouble we're going to have going forward with meeting some of these adaptability changes. So appreciate your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you being here, Zach. Can you tell me, during the deep freeze that we all experienced,
Sure,
what was the power and energy outputs from gas versus wind and solar?
A good question, and I have some numbers kind of in my mind from the Texas experience.
Kansas.
Okay, I'd be happy to defer that to maybe some of the folks in the utility that might know a little bit better. As far as I know that the problem here in Kansas from either the rolling blackouts that our biggest utilities faced were due to a mix of short gas supply to run those peaker plants. The fact that we were providing power to other states to help out with their energy need. That was my understanding. I don't think we had as much failure per se of the actual energy sources in Kansas, just kind of wider low supply from natural gas from the market, and then also pushing our power to the regional market.
I believe you're correct. We were supplying power to Kansas plus other states.
Right.
My understanding, looking at the charts from the Southwest Power Pool, is that the wind went down to less than 7%. and solar was almost non-existent. So let's go ahead and shut the gas off too, and shut down the coal, and where are we going with this? Because you're making it look like wind and solar was carrying us during that time.
Okay, yeah, no, you make a good point. We gotta make some pretty important investments into our energy future. And so this will be a learning lesson that we need more energy conservation statewide. We need to really try to make more energy efficiency a big priority. We need energy storage systems bad. And we haven't done that on the electric sector. And I'm not just talking about batteries, I'm talking about compressed air energy storage, other types of non-battery energy storage, et cetera. So, hopefully this will be a learning lesson that, we need to make some strong considerations on our energy future and go back to the drawing board and make some key investments there. So, we got more work to do, transmission systems, but we need more energy we need more solar and wind energy, for example, to help out with that power balance. And I don't see us getting rid of natural gas anytime soon. I think I said that more than once. But we need to think about limiting some of these fossil fuel dependence so we're not in bad shape going forward.
The other question I've got, since we're talking about Lawrence, and I'm just randomly grabbing Lawrence.
Sure.
Does Lawrence have any hospitals?
Yes. I was actually born in Lawrence Memorial Hospital. And KU won the national championship.
For example, the hospitals, when electricity does go down, which it happens from time to time, what keeps their lights on during an operation or during childbirth or whatever? What might happen?
Sure. Yeah, backup generators. I think, we're talking about, look at some of our legislative studies that the legislature authorized. Microgrids, community resilience programs where, they don't shut the power off to critical infrastructure, if you will. So, yeah, I take your point there.
If I can just make a general statement that you had mentioned, supporting this bill may be result in a campaign contribution. I take offense to that, sir.
Okay.
I really do.
Okay.
And it may alter my judgment on what I do with this bill. So, thank you, Chairman.
Appreciate it, Representative.
Any other questions? I do have another one since you brought it up.
You bet.
You mentioned the peaker plants. What exactly does a peaker plant do?
My understanding, again, I'm not as in tune as an expert some of these things, but peaker plants just generally provide a backup power to some of our intermittent resources right now. I mean, we're pretty reliable. Wind in Kansas, solar is pretty reliable, but at those times they can't provide. We got a peaker plant for backup power, but that niche could be filled by energy storage and other wholesale market energy with the Southwest Power Pool. So don't get me wrong, this is a work in progress here on a resilient energy future. Thank you, Chairman. And then last, if I may, I know we have other opponents, and so don't let me steal all their time, and I hope that they get the time to testify, later or all that. So just want to put a word for that.
Thank you. Moving right along here, we do have Rabbi Monte Reber.
Chairman.
Is he online yet?
Chairman. Did you want to call up Ed Cross?
Well, I'm gonna wait until, so the ones that are virtual. So
Okay,
we'll get through those
okay.
real quick.
All right.
We can have a
All
few
right.
questions then.
All right.
Did you call on me, Mr. Chairman? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we can.
Appreciate your enthusiasm.
Am I going, Mr. Chairman?
Try again. Start talking. Keep talking.
Hear me, Mr. Chairman? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Testing, 1, 2. Testing, hello.
Just set it right there and I'll hold it up. Oh, set it right down there. Set that down. Okay. Where's the speaker?
Right there.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear
Yes.
me? Okay. All right, Mark, that's public service. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, Ranking Member Keither. Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. I'm Rabbi Moti Reber. I'm the Executive Director of Kansas Interfaith Action. We're a statewide multi-faith issue advocacy organization that works on a variety of social, economic, and climate justice issues. We represent primarily mainline Protestant, moderate Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, and Unitarian Universalist communities of faith in Kansas. And we're the State Public Policy Office of the ELCA Lutheran Church and the Kansas-Oklahoma Conference of the United Church of Christ. The denominations, faith communities, and individuals that comprise KIFA, Kansas Interfaith Action, take as the very core of our mission the care of God's creation. So our commitment to creation care is an inseparable part of our religious identity. And that's the basis on which I'm testifying before you today. We oppose SB 24 both on the merits and on the process. So I'll take those in order. So the context of this issue is that in order to avoid the worst repercussions of human-caused climate disruption, we need to move as quickly as possible to decarbonize our economy. So the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says that we need to, in order to keep under the 1.5 degree target, we need to be half decarbonized. Our economy needs to be half decarbonized by 2030 and fully decarbonized by 2050. We simply cannot meet this budget if we continue to rely on fossil fuels, including natural gas. Natural gas's price advantages and reliability advantages are significantly overstated, as we've seen in the polar vortex. But natural gas's prices are artificially suppressed by the use of fracking and running at a loss, which many companies do. Its affordability and reliability has been vastly overstated. So when we're trying to retire coal plants, natural gas is a good alternative, but it cannot get us the last few yards to the end zone. Natural gas has a significant impact on the climate through the use of methane, a fast-acting greenhouse gas with enormous short-term impacts on climate. It leaks in production, in transportation. These methane leaks wipe out natural gas's advantages over coal as a carbon emitter. The second thing is on the process. So I've been working on this issue for about 10 years now. We have a very difficult time having a serious conversation about climate change in Kansas. There's no policy in Kansas to address climate change. There's no energy plan. There's no climate plan. There's no resilience plan to address the impacts of climate change. So when a municipality, the citizens of a municipality—
Rabbi, could you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
You're reading your testimony, and I appreciate that. We all have your written testimony included.
All right, let me just
try to get through everybody today, so
let me just hit the
statement.
Let me just hit the high points. So we have no way to make climate policy in Kansas. So when the people in a municipality go to their municipality to try to make policy in the absence of state policy, what happens is that fossil fuel interests go to the state legislature and attempt to get it preempted. This is an end around to citizen action in Lawrence. Now, the ordinance in Lawrence does not come into effect for 15 years. It does not require, counter to what the proponent said, it does not require retrofitting of current infrastructure. It only applies to new infrastructure, and it applies in 15 years. In 15 years from now, the situation could be completely different in terms of what the cost of renewables are, the availability of renewables, the transmission issues. There's going to be a lot of work done in the next 15 years. If we're 11, 12, 13 years from now, and this is still a problem, you can come back and pass this bill then. But in order to pass a bill that's a prospective bill that limits the ability of citizens to petition their government for meaningful climate action, It's bad policy and it's bad process. Mr. Chairman, we need policy on this issue. We don't need this policy. We don't need this committee to undermine the hard work of citizens who take climate change seriously. We don't need to be forced backwards in the long, hard slog towards decarbonizing our economy. We ask you to vote against SB 24. Thank you very much.
Have time for a quick question? Seeing none. Thank you. Tad Turner.
Kramer.
Tad Kramer is on here also. Tad, I'll give you a few minutes to state what you'd like to say if you can. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, I am Tad Kramer of Big Springs, Kansas. I thank you for the opportunity to testify. Article 12, Section 5B of the Kansas Constitution states that cities are hereby empowered to determine their local affairs. Section 5D declares powers and authority granted cities pursuant to this section shall be liberally construed for the purpose of giving to cities the largest measure of self-government. Consequently, there must be a compelling public policy interest or concern to justify taking away a municipality's constitutional home rule authority in a particular case. In other words, home rule is extremely important. Don't mess with it. In proposing SB 24, the natural gas industry thinks that it should receive special treatment over other energy sources by taking away a municipality's home rule authority for the purpose of protecting only natural gas. Why should natural gas receive special treatment? Why should a municipality lose its home rule authority just because natural gas is involved? SB 24 is the exact opposite of what we should be doing. Climate change with its extreme weather events is here now and will only get worse unless we take action to decrease our reliance on fossil fuels, including natural gas. If a municipality chooses to responsibly address climate change by enacting ordinances, codes, or rules designed to decrease reliance on fossil fuels, this is an appropriate and desirable exercise of its home rule authority granted by the Kansas Constitution, especially when that authority is required to be liberally construed to provide the largest measure of self-government. Moreover, renewable energy sources are becoming more efficient and cost-effective. Some analyses have concluded that in some cases, renewable energy sources have become less expensive than natural gas, and this could become more common in the future. Consequently, SB 24 could lock in more costly natural gas service when more effective and sustainable energy opportunities exist for communities, especially down the road in the future. Therefore, SB 24 is an outrageous power grab by the natural gas industry and should be called the Natural Gas Protection Act. It is a flagrant violation of constitutional home rule and is the exact opposite of what we should be doing in view of the urgent need to address climate change and its increasingly extreme weather events. Thank you for your careful consideration of these issues.
Right, thank you. Any questions real quick? Seeing none. Paul Snyder. On behalf of the Natural Resource Defense Council, Paul, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Paul, we do have your testimony, like I asked previous ones, to not read it word for word, if you can give it.
Is it, with your indulgence, is it possible to wait until Thursday for myself, and Mr. Sartorius, and Mr. Carter?
We got a lot of things coming, but we got a few minutes. Do your best instead of talking about it right now.
Very good. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Snyder, I'm here on behalf of the Natural Resources Defense Council. We're an environmental and energy advocacy organization. Involvement in Kansas thus far has been focused on energy efficiency issues, but do need to feel like we need to take a stand on Senate Bill 24. We do think it's an overreaction and is written fairly broadly and bypasses the specific point of what it's trying to do, which is to prevent a city from unilaterally, declaring that you can't use a specific fuel source. But we do have an amendment that has been signed off on by a number of parties, in which it looks like this, and I just want to walk you briefly through that. The first change of the amendment adds the word unreasonably. What we are concerned about is that cities will be involved in litigation brought by the gas companies for seemingly inconsequential action. So we're just trying to clarify something there. It has the rather broad term, or has the effect thereof. I don't know that there are any lawyers here in the room. I know there are two on Zoom, but that's a pretty broad term. We'd like to just remove that. And then the third part basically preserves a municipality's right to continue to do building codes and set performance standards for buildings. But let me give you a couple examples of why an amendment such as this is needed. Number one, it does not in any way, would not in any way give the city of Florence to declare or extinguish the right of people to use natural gas. That amendment would not touch that in any way. What it does though, suppose that a community decides in their building codes it's smart for new buildings or new garages to be wired with a 220 outlet in case someone eventually gets an electric vehicle. I'm not saying you put in an electric vehicle charging station, but you run the wire basically there. That's the cost of putting it out. Is that going to be considered running afoul of this? Is that encouraging people to go electric in lieu of a combustion engine? Another one, a goal is to, almost every city or large city at least of certain size has building codes that encourages insulation in buildings. I think as time goes on, every few years, there's international building codes that cities adopt. As buildings get tighter and tighter, sometimes you need extra ventilation in a building, particularly a non-residential building that doesn't have windows that you can open. Well, as you get a more well-sealed envelope to a building, sometimes that requires extra ventilation. Does that set up a city for a gas company to say, well, now you've made it too expensive for us to run natural gas because you're going to need, a 6-inch vent pipe versus a 4-inch vent pipe, something like that. Well, what the amendment is trying to do is to preserve the ability of cities to do that. So we're trying to make it very efficient, not trying in any way kill this bill, but try to make it workable for cities as they try to work with their communities on proper building standards. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions, and I appreciate the time.
Any questions? Lieutenant Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Paul.
Yes, sir.
In the amendment that I'm looking at, a number of conferees have presented this amendment to us. And indeed, it pertains to new or existing buildings. Is that correct? Or am I looking at
that is correct.
Amendment.
And I would say the way that existing building would be interpreted would not be you've got a home, you're not changing anything to it, that you would proactively need to make a change. It's as codes develop whenever you go to get a new permit for new construction at a new or existing, that's where a new performance standard may take. Just the same way you go to build a new deck, there's new codes that may be different than the codes 10 years ago.
Right, that answers my question.
Thank you. And again, appreciate you, we want to work.
Certainly.
I'm sure your amendments or whatever, so we appreciate you giving it that time.
Thank you.
Okay, last, world opponents, Eric Sartorius, Executive Director, Leading Municipalities.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Eric Sartorius, Executive Director, League of Kansas Municipalities. Thank you for letting us appear here today in opposition to this. You've heard a lot from a lot of folks. I feel like I'm the backup preacher that everybody's sad when they get him instead of Zach, but you've got me back clean up, I guess. We do oppose Senate Bill 24. We do believe it's an overreach. Do you all have the power within the Kansas Constitution to pass this legislation? Yes. The Kansas Constitution also speaks very strongly and was voted on by the people of Kansas in 1960 that most issues should be handled and are best handled at the local level of government. And we believe this one matches up with that. Cities are not engaged in developing policies, plans, or ordinances toward diminishing their business community or their attractiveness to residents. It's just not in their interest to do so. I do want to touch briefly on a lot of the talk that we've heard this morning and in the Senate as well about this maintaining gas as a low-cost option. I also heard Conferee talking about I don't know how they got the calculation, this could increase energy prices 50% for customers. Frankly, right now in a lot of our cities, people would kill to have only a 50% increase in energy. I don't know what you all have heard from your constituents, but we are facing bills that are 10, 20, 70, even in some places 200 times the normal amount. We have a small supermarket north of here, got their gas bill for this year, for this month, it's normally $600. The bill is $67,000. So when we talk about this being a low cost, consistently low cost, always low cost source of energy, let's keep in mind that may not always be the case. I've explained this to a lot of my friends who don't watch this up closely. You've got to get to work, you're running late, you put 2 gallons in the tank, $3, and it's getting to be about $3 a gallon. You go back in the evening and you got appendicitis, so you got to get to the hospital. Car's out of gas, you've got to buy the gas. The gas is now $622 a gallon. And that's what happened. And you've seen, and we're very grateful for you all unanimously supporting the legislation last week to allow, or 2 weeks ago, to allow a low-cost loan program. We just got in details, 53 cities have taken advantage of that so far and made application for almost $65 million. You've not seen as much yet in the IOUs. They have a different process. My understanding is Kansas Gas Service and their parent company have taken a loan of over in the multiple billions of dollars to cover these costs from last month. This is something that's going to impact everybody. So to suggest that it's a low cost and there aren't any issues here, yes, the gas flowed if you want to pay $622 in MMBTU. We'll see how they spread that out. But the bigger concerns are this bill is overarching, overreaching, and gets into real questions about how this may impact franchise fees, how this impacts. Now the Senate, the bill in front of you does clarify that city-owned buildings would be able to have their energy choices. I think, and I don't know if I can get Lawrence to answer any questions that you all may have. I thought they might have had somebody here. But, it needs to be clarified that we have the amendments that you see attached that we're supportive of. We'd like to see franchise fees clarified, that this does not become a way for folks to seek to nullify any franchise fees. And Mr. Chairman, time is short. I'd rather just stand for questions if there are any.
I was looking at it, is it pretty same as the previous speakers?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're part of the.
So we won't need to spend much time on that.
No.
We need to get this done here. Okay, any questions for Eric? See none, Eric, thank you.
Thanks,
Sorry
sir.
we've gotten short of time, but this is end of the season here. Okay, with that, we're gonna close the opponent section.
Chairman.
We have Brett Holding testimony.
Chairman.
Bradley.
Chairman.
Okay, we have Gilbert Kelly with the Executive Director of Emily Wolf Program Coordinator, Metropolitan Energy. Nick Carter on behalf of Mike Goss, Attorney, City of Overland Park. Stuart Little, Government Relations. Susie Scott from Wichita, Dorothy Vanderden, Climate and Energy Project. Sage Farhall, Wichita, Kansas. And in neutral, we have Jeff Slanton, call ahead. I don't know if we have time. Do we have time to give a quick virtual? Is he on here?
Yes, I am, Chair. Can you hear me? Chair, can you hear me?
As a written only, so that's where we're going to stay. We have to stay on course.
Chairman.
Jeff, would you, are you here?
He just asked if you.
Chairman.
Jeff, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
There's Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Can you go ahead?
Okay, thank you. I'll be very brief here. Chair Seibert, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you. My name is Jeff McClanahan. I'm the Director of the Utilities Division for the Kansas Corporation Commission. We are neutral on SB 24. It is clearly a policy decision for the legislature. I'll make a quick apology, and I still included that SB 24 would apply to both gas and electric. I failed to edit out the electric when I converted my testimony over to you. It now only applies to natural gas. The balance of my testimony really just reflects the fact that you've already heard that bans on natural gas will raise rates for existing customers, for the remaining customers, I should say, for the gas utilities through just stranded assets and fewer customers to pay those bills. With that, I think my testimony is fairly straightforward, and I'll just answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Chairman, Dorothy Barnett here with the Climate and Energy Project.
I'm sorry. We're on neutral components, virtual. Jeff, did you get finished? Was you able to finish your remark?
I did finish. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions for Jeff? Seeing none, thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Virtual, written only on neutral was Dave Nickel-Kerr and Carl Reiniger, American Heart Association. With that, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 24. Representative Kirkwood, you have a question?
There was a request earlier to make it available for Ed Cross to be able to.
Yes, I'm going to go to, if we can ask you questions, I'm going to get them in here real quick. I have to close the hearing first. Representative Carmichael, are you still online?
Yes, I am. And my question just simply was, what's the contribution of natural gas?
We've got a few minutes and we got to get to the floor. Ed, please state your name and who you're with for.
Yes, I'm Ed Cross, President of the Kansas Independent Oil and Gas Association. Pleasure to be here to answer the question.
And Mr. Chairman, the question was, my question was, what's the approximate value of the contribution of natural gas production to the Kansas economy, separate and apart from petroleum or oil production?
Natural gas production.
Ignoring. Oh.
Oil and natural gas production in Kansas, you're talking about the value. Oil production is about 84%, 16% is natural gas production in terms of value of the product sold.
All right, so that's 16% of how much money for the state GDP?
I certainly will.
All right, thank you. With that, committee, we're adjourned for today. We will talk to you. We have the agenda coming out for Thursday. Stay in touch. Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
Technology.
Technology.
Yeah.